Whether you're in North or South Carolina or anywhere else in the world, enter the Cat Cave to listen to your favorite Carolina Panthers podcast as part of the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, where you can find shows like Embrace, Debate, and Inside the Vault, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. And we have a special edition of the show because today marks our 1 year anniversary of the Cat Cave. You know, how about that stuff? So let's go ahead and welcome in Michael Davis. We've been doing it since day one, right? How's it going today, bud? Happy anniversary to you.
Happy anniversary. Down since day one. Not ish. We've been down since day one. I want to say before we get going, like, it's been an honor doing the Cat Cave for the last year. Special shout to Desmond Johnson for the opportunity. Special shout out to Fans First Sports Network. I didn't know when we started this podcast a year ago that it would lead to, us growing the Cat Cave, that it would allow us to, do some more work with Fans First. It would allow me to write some more articles for Fans First Sports Network. I get to cover football, basketball, baseball, wrestling. Dropped a lot of wrestling articles this past week. Didn't know that we would eventually add Shannon. You guys did an incredible job last fall. While I got better, while I got healthy, and it meant the world to me that you guys kept it going. And it sucked that I didn't get to experience the fall with you guys, because that's when football's actually on. But here's to better luck and better health this year, and super excited for what the show's future has in store.
I second that sentiment, and it's a great transition to welcome in Shannon Smith, who, like you said, took the torch when requested upon him, and yeah, he's filled in when I haven't been around, when you haven't been around, and he's on the show every week with us now. So Shannon, what's going on, man? How's everything going?
Everything's going good. I appreciate you guys allowing me to be a part of this. Unfortunately, unlike you guys, I don't have my own show, so I can give more time. It's in the works. It's in the works, but I really appreciate you guys adding me on to your shows as well too. With the time I did Tap Outs and Touchdowns with you, Ryan, and then the time I've been on Drop the Mic and Out of Pocket with you, MD. I appreciate you guys adding me on. I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this and still keeping me on even after MD came back. It's been an honor. I look forward to the next fall. Hopefully, the Panthers will do better and we can talk more about wins than losses,
Shannon, we would kick Ryan out before we'd kick you out. Let's be honest.
Listen,
love you, Ryan.
Listen, sometimes I don't want to be around, like I don't want to be around you guys. Like, y'all go out and do wrestling shows without me. And you, especially Mike, likes to take shots at my homerism. If you're watching the video feed over on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel, you see me wearing my second Jadeveon Clowney jersey in honor of him signing a few weeks ago. So yeah, Michael Davis, Shannon Smith, I'm Ryan Frick, and we're going to talk some Carolina Panthers football here today. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. As Derrick Brown, star defensive tackle for the Carolina Panthers, signs a contract extension, 4 years, $96 million, more than $63 million guaranteed. We talk about the money that they were not throwing around to keep guys like Frankie Louvu and Brian Burns. They traded away Brian Burns for less than probably what they would have been able to get for him. But after a stellar year from Derrick Brown, he was ranked among across Pro Football Focus as the number 4 defensive tackle in the NFL last season. Mike, let's start off with you. What are your thoughts on this massive locking up of one of the integral parts of this Carolina Panthers defense?
One of the opportunities I'm blessed with is to host Out of Pocket 4 days a week on this Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. And we did a supersized episode. We did 1 hour on Friday because the Final Four, because of WrestleMania. And then this breaking news gets inserted in there. And this should not be taken lightly. Derrick Brown is the best defensive player the Carolina Panthers have. Now that Brian Burns has went to the Giants and Frankie Louvu has went to the Commanders, Derrick Brown is the piece that the Panthers are building around. So you have to lock him up. Now, they could have traded Derrick Brown off for some draft capital if they didn't believe that Brown wasn't a centric part of this Panthers rebuild. So kudos to the Panthers for getting this done. Last year, he played all 17 games. He only had a couple sacks, but I mean, he had over 100 tackles. He had 103 tackles, and he gets in that backfield, and he had 15 hits on the quarterback. So they obviously have a piece to build around the defense, and good job, Panthers. This was awesome.
Yeah, Shannon, I'm going to go to you now. Michael mentioned it, 103 tackles, 7 were for a loss. He did have 2 sacks. According to Next Gen Stats, he had 79 tackles for run stops last year that led all defensive tackles in the NFL. And despite being double teamed on 42% of his rushes, of snaps, rather, he got 37 pressures on the quarterback. You talked about it. The games are won and losses. Games are won and lost, I should say, in the trenches. Shannon, how do you feel about this Derrick Brown contract extension? And do you think that this is a good key part of this defense that the Panthers can build around over the next few years?
Although I didn't like Frankie Louvu leaving and the fact that Brian Burns left, I understand why Brian Burns had to go. I understand that. But if you would have told me that I had to choose between Derrick Brown and Frankie Louvu, I believe I would have took Derrick Brown. And because looking at the fact that he was the number 4 defensive tackle in the NFL, and one of those guys retired, so that moves him into 3. So that makes a lot of sense to bring him in here. You're going to have to start this defense basically from scratch. You've got a lot of free agent guys. You have some return players, but on that line, he's the guy. 103 tackles from a defensive tackle. That's linebacker numbers right there. There's no way defensive tackles didn't get 100 and some tackles back in the days. If they were special players. But Derrick Brown, in this case, is a special player, and they have to build around this guy. Evero, I believe, wants this guy. I'm pretty sure everybody wants this guy here. They wouldn't have gave him 4 years and 96 mil if they didn't want him. This was not a wasted. This is not a wasted sign. This was a very good sign. You've got to get this going. You got to get this defense going. Derrick Brown's the guy to do it. He's a young guy, 25 years old. Keep that young man. Let that young man flourish for this defense. Put pieces around him. Make this squad great. You got to start within the trenches with the line. That's what's going to get you going on the defense as well, too. So, very good sign. Good job, Panthers.
Yeah, former number 7 overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft. Again, I mentioned Pro Football Focus gave him the 4th best grade for defensive tackles. You mentioned Aaron
Donald.
Like it's going to come on. Aaron Donald, Quinnen Williams, and Dexter Lawrence are those other 3. So, like you mentioned, with Aaron Donald gone, you've got Derrick Brown right there as one of your top 3 interior defensive linemen in the NFL. Last year the Panthers made a bunch of splashes in the offseason that we were optimistic about. Like I picked the Panthers to win the division just behind the Saints. Obviously that didn't happen last season. So I want to be cautiously optimistic because this is a guy who played for the Panthers last year, who will continue to play for the Panthers despite some new guys being around. And listen, you can double Derrick Brown. You can double Jadeveon Clowney, but you can't do them both. And so having those 2 guys on the defensive line are going to wreak havoc in backfields. A huge piece to stick around for the Carolina Panthers over the next 4 years. So with that being said, let's move on here. The offseason programs are starting to begin around the NFL. The voluntary workouts for the Carolina Panthers began yesterday. Regular official offseason workouts begin April 18th. Obviously, we're going to get into some draft talk here in a minute because both of the other guys have done their mock drafts. So I get to explore mine today, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Michael, you mentioned this sort of the peek behind the curtain. We kind of were wondering, like, hey, we got the draft in a few weeks, but what is there really to talk about here in Carolina as we approach the draft? And Michael mentioned talking about the offseason workouts. And so, Michael, kind of what are your thoughts? Like, what do you expect to see out of these voluntary workouts? What do we need to see out of these workouts? And who needs to sort of step up and be a workout warrior for the Panthers coming in 2024?
So as of this podcast and the time we're recording the Cat Cave for Tobacco Road and Fans First Sports Network, I haven't heard of any players skipping out on these voluntary offseason workouts. But when you are the worst team in the NFL because of your record. That is record speaking. When you are the bottom of your division and when you just go out and re-sign one of your best, honestly, your best defensive player, you need everybody to show up, to show out, and be committed because the work starts today. Yes, it is April 10th, and you're going to have like 4 more months until we get the preseason. We don't know who's all going to be on this team quite yet because we still have the draft here in a few weeks and we get to see Ryan's mock here in a few moments. But if you are not there and you are not given 110%, you should not be on this Panthers squad. Okay? Get out. Like if you are not committed, if you are not fully invested, the work starts now. The work starts here, and you have to show up. You have to be dedicated because to build that winning culture in Charlotte, North Carolina, to where teams are afraid to go to Bank of America Stadium, all 53 players and the 10 practice squad guys need to be fully bought in. So that's my sentiment. If you're a Panthers player and you stumbled across the Cat Cave on Tobacco Road or Fans First Sports Network, this should motivate you and put fire under your butt so that you guys don't repeat what you had happen back in 2023.
Shannon, I'm going to pose the same question to you. What are your thoughts on the offseason workout program for the Carolina Panthers? Obviously, you've got to agree with the sentiment from Michael, but what else do you expect to see from these workouts here in the offseason?
Well, it's definitely what MD says. These guys all need to be here. Voluntary, involuntary, 2-a-days, 3-a-days, 1-a-days, doesn't matter. I need your butts there. You've got a new coaching staff. Canales has been talking. He's been talking real good. So he has an opportunity to back up that talk with these OTAs, with these mandatory practices. I think that he's fully invested in this. I think Carolina has a coach that looks like he is fully invested in this team. They have a coach that is going to be looking after his players, who wants to develop and who wants to build. Carolina's made some good offseason moves in free agency. The draft is coming up. We got to get guys going. Your jobs are on the line. That's where they have to go to these practices and realize that nobody is safe on this squad. Come in here with a hard hat, lunch pail attitude. Go out there, get work done, and we'll go from there. Everything will be taken care of during the draft and during the offseason, but you got to do your assignments daily. You got to go in there with an attitude of, we're going to get things done and we're going to develop synergy. We're going to come with a passion. We're going to come in ready to work. So I got to go with MD on that one. He said it perfectly. I just added my 2 cents in there. So I think that it just has to be, you got to go in there with a sense of urgency and knowing that your job's not safe.
Yeah, listen, when it comes to workouts and it comes to practice, all I can think of is Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice, not the game. We're talking about practice. The ironic part about that is that without practice, you don't get better. Without the offseason workouts, you don't get stronger. You don't get faster. Maybe you don't stay in the same shape that you need to stay in for the regular season. You don't get better without the practice and without the offseason workout program. And so, again, to echo both of your sentiments, if you're not wanting to get better, then maybe it's time that you find a new home and we find a trade partner for you, because we need all the help we can get. The Carolina Panthers were the worst team in football. They still have the worst owner in football. So you're going to have to overcome all of this if you're going to be successful on the field. And the team is going to be super young.
And Ryan, another point is, like, we're all wrestling guys on the panel. The Rock, probably the best entertainer of all time, spent the last few months training. Whenever he had the opportunity, they would fly out wrestlers to help The Rock train for this past weekend's WrestleMania. Like The Rock, if The Rock can put the work in during his busy schedule, then guys who just got paid, like Derrick Brown, you just got paid like a team leader. You need to be out on the field as a team leader, leading this team so that the other guys see your hard work, see, hey, I got the money, but there's still work to be done. We haven't earned anything yet. So having that same hunger and that same passion could lead the Panthers to win a very easy division.
Nope. I couldn't agree more. So it'll be interesting to see how it sort of continues to progress here in Charlotte with the offseason workout. Hopefully everybody can stay healthy. A lot of guys tend to wear down and get hurt in some of these workouts. So we, more than anything, keep everybody healthy, but also get better here in the offseason. All right, folks. The NFL draft set to take place April 25th to April 27th in 2024 in Detroit, Michigan. And for the last 2 weeks, both Michael and Shannon were able to give their mock drafts as to how they saw the Carolina Panthers draft going this coming season. And so I got to do my own this week. And I'm going to sort of give you my analysis and then kind of pitch it back to you guys after every pick. And maybe next week we can sort of like compare and contrast each one instead of just kind of going through, individually here. I do remember last week, the first pick, the pick 33 overall from Shannon was that of Xavier Legette. I'm sorry, not Xavier Legette, Xavier Worthy from the University of Texas. And I did the same thing. And I just noticed as I'm doing the bottom line, if you're watching on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, the number 33 overall pick is the only pick that I put the number by it. So I apologize for the optimal goof on my part. But let's go ahead and start off with the 33rd overall pick. I also, like Shannon Smith, took Xavier Worthy, and I've got some sort of stats here to back up why I did. Last year, his final year in Texas, 1,000 yard receiver, 5 touchdowns. He is a smaller guy, 5'11", 165, but it's been very well documented. He is now recorded the fastest 40 time in combine history at 4.21 seconds running his 40-yard dash. He was ranked the 3rd wide receiver overall at the NFL Combine. You talk about getting this team better. You talk about getting weapons for Bryce Young. That's why I went with Xavier Worthy. Shannon, since you're the one, obviously you already picked him, right? So you picked him with your first pick for the Panthers draft pick. So, Michael, I'm going to ask you again, if Xavier Worthy is available at pick 33 overall, do you take Xavier Worthy?
Now, I believe I said this on last week's Cat Cave episode that Xavier Worthy is fast. I mean, everybody is going off after he got that 4.2 40. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's incredible. Okay. But there's concern about his hands. So it doesn't matter how fast you are if you can't catch the ball if you're a wide receiver. So hopefully Xavier's speed and his hands ability is good enough to play in the NFL because we know he's fast. But can you catch the ball? Bryce Young needs reliable targets out on the outside.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. And that's why I went in my mock draft with the 39th overall pick. I took another wide receiver. And I told you it was, if I had the chance to be a homer, I was going to take it. And listen, in fairness, there's a lot of homerism in this draft. So we're gonna get to that here in a second. But with the 39th pick, I paired Xavier Worthy with Xavier Legette at 39 overall, wide receiver from South Carolina. If you look at his stats last year, 1,255 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns on a team that did not make a bowl game in South Carolina in 2023. He was listed around 6'3", 6'4". At the combine, he was listed at 6'1", 221 pounds, but not quite the 4.2 time of Xavier Worthy, but he did have a 4.39 40-yard dash with all of his measurables and his production. He was ranked the 13th overall wide receiver at the NFL Combine. Shannon, I'm gonna let you start us off here. I told you if I had the chance, I was going to do it. The fact that Worthy was there and Legette was there, I figured, listen, if you're going to get young at skill positions on offense, maybe put Worthy returning kicks, put him in a slot when Thielen needs a breather. You've still got Jonathan Mingo, but I don't think you can pass up on Xavier Legette, and he's still there at 39. Shannon, what say you?
You've got the speed down, which is a big thing because you got 2 speedy guys, 2 young, speedy receivers. Legette's got size on him, which is really, really good. That's going to have him in the open field, which will see him going over the middle with this offense. Like you said, Bryce Young needs reliable guys, reliable receivers that are going to take bumps, receivers that are going to get open. And plus, they need to stretch the field because this offense has gotten lethargic in the passing game. So I like the pick. I like both picks. If Xavier Worthy's not there, Xavier Legette is not a bad move. And plus, you can develop them, which is something else that you can do with both of these receivers. You can develop them, get them acclimated to the way you want them to play. And I think Dan Canales is a person that can do that. So good picks. I like them.
Yeah, listen, Mike, it's kind of scary to go wide receiver back to back, but I always thought the Panthers needed to do it. Xavier Legette, more of my concern is his health. He didn't really stay healthy for a full year when he was at South Carolina. Didn't stay healthy all this past season, and that's one of the big concerns that we have with some of these guys on the roster now. How do you like to pick at Xavier Legette as our second draft pick this coming season?
Knowing you, I knew this would happen, so I already prepared what I would say. So it might sound a little too rehearsed that I might have stared in the mirror and I'm like, Ryan, how could you do this? Now, when I thought, I didn't think you were going to pick two receivers at the first two picks. And so for that, I can understand if you took a receiver at 33 or 39 and then took one with a later pick. But this Panthers team has so many holes that if you just go to receiver, I mean, Jonathan Mingo's still on the team. Adam Thielen's still on the team. Deontay Johnson you just traded for. So all of a sudden, now you have 5 wide receivers. And you still have some issues on the offensive line you need to address. They got the 2 guard spots locked up. Maybe Akeem Ekwonu steps up as a left tackle, but what about your center? What about your right tackle? Are you going to get a starter quality all the way down at your next pick outside of the second round at 65? It's just there's so many more holes on the Panthers that, yes, they do need a receiver. They do need somebody to help Bryce Young, but that's why they trade for Deontay Johnson. You need a corner. You need a linebacker, which I see you got a linebacker here in your mock. Just it's more than just the flashy wide receiver pick.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think Deontay Johnson's the answer. I think they were getting ready to cut the corner they traded for him anyway. So this is sort of a non-issue. Like if Deontay Johnson winds up fizzling out and gets cut, like I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you've already seen Laviska Shenault gone. I haven't seen DJ Chark sign anywhere. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process. Like you're going to build and develop players at this young age to build around this offense. Like the offense is already young. Like keep it going. And that's why I decided to take 2 wide receivers, my first 2 picks. You talk about getting a starting quality offensive lineman. I did that with the 65th overall pick. I took offensive tackle from Notre Dame, Blake Fisher, 6'6", 310-pound offensive lineman, ranked 14th best offensive tackle at the NFL Combine. This is some analysis according to NFL analyst Lance Zierlein, athletic tackle with the talent to gain some traction in a draft that is deep at his position. Fisher can be laid off the ball, creating early disadvantages, and his contact balance and hand usage can be spotty at times. He's capable a climber and puller as a move blocker, as he does a nice job of driving blocking with plus technique to create leverage. So a pretty decent offensive tackle here at 65 overall. Mike, you just talked about the fact that that I needed a starting offensive tackle in this draft. I mean, how did I do with Blake Fisher getting as our third pick here?
Now it's interesting. I like Blake Fisher. I think that's a good pick. But my question is, there's a concern of speed rushers to his outside shoulder in a scouting report I read of him. So would he be the best right tackle, or does he have more of a guard fit? He did play, I believe, offensive tackle at Notre Dame. So whoever takes him will need to be comfortable if he gives a little, leeway to a speed rusher on the outside. But hey, you got to build that offensive line, and you have at all costs to protect Bryce Young.
In the sake of time, we're going to move on here. I appreciate the criticism or the constructive criticism of my draft.
Feedback.
Let's go to pick 101 overall, and I'm going linebacker Jeremiah Trotter, a junior out of Clemson, which you might find kind of, I don't know, confusing considering the jersey that I'm wearing and the team that I root for. But last season at Clemson, he had 54 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. He's a 6', 228-pound linebacker, ranked the 6th best linebacker in the NFL Combine last year. He was second-team Associated Press All-American, first-team All-ACC. He was a finalist for the Butkus Award. He started 12 games with 88 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. His dad, Jeremiah Trotter Sr., was a 4-time Pro Bowl linebacker who played 11 seasons in the NFL. He is a member of the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame. We talked about filling the void of Frankie Louvu. Shannon, how did I do taking Jeremiah Trotter here with pick 101?
I like this pick here. I like the pedigree that he came from a Pro Bowl father. I watched Jeremiah Trotter play football for Philadelphia over the years. Very good football player, very good linebacker. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. played very, very well with Clemson as well, too. I like the pick. If it wasn't for me having a draft, I believe it was the offensive guard. No. It was the corner that I drafted. I would have drafted Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So I like the pick. Very good.
All right, next step in my draft, I've taken running back Marshawn Lloyd at 141 overall from Southern California. This is not a homer pick because he played at South Carolina, because personally, I'm not a huge fan of Marshawn Lloyd. But if you look at his measurables last year, 820 yards rushing with 9 touchdowns, but he averaged 7.1 yards per carry, kind of undersized running back at 5'9", 220. He ranked the ninth best running back at the Combine. He ran a 4.46 40-yard dash, but he had 25 reps on the bench. So we look at another running back I wouldn't say to go along with Miles Sanders, because I think at some point Miles Sanders will not be here. But I think a nice strong lower bodied, and by strong lower bodied, I mean closer to the ground running back, and a guy like Marshawn Lloyd would be a nice supplement to that of Chuba Hubbard. Mike, what say you about Marshawn Lloyd?
Yeah, I was going to call you out for him being a former Gamecock, but I think the Panthers need a running back. They re-signed Blackshear to a 1-year deal. Maybe they can continue to develop Marshawn Lloyd, who has a great home run ability. But yeah, solid pick. I'm concerned because he did have a torn ACL in his freshman year at South Carolina, and he missed some time last year due to injury, I believe. So those would be my only concerns. But I mean, especially at 141, I'm okay with that pick.
Yeah. That's kind of why I picked him so late, and I'm more concerned about his maturity too. So I'm hoping that he can sort of grow up here with the Panthers. My next pick goes to tight end Jem Bell from Florida State. Again, former Gamecock, but not why I picked him. He didn't have great stats last year. 503 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6'2", 241 pounds, and a 4.61 yard 40-yard dash, 4.61 second 40-yard dash, I should say. But he was ranked the 4th best tight end at the NFL Combine. Listen, no Hayden Hurst. We signed, I can't remember the guy's name that we signed that played for us last year that they're dwelling on. But this is something that kind of caught my eye that I wanted to bring up, is why I took Jem Bell. And I know we're running late, so I'm gonna try to do as quick as I can. The last time Jem Bell played in Bank of America Stadium was in the 2021 or 2022 Duke's Mayo Bowl, where all he did was catch 5 passes for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Dude knows what it's like to play and be successful in Bank of America Stadium. Shannon, how do you like my tight end pick here late in the draft at 142 overall?
It was smart that you got a tight end. Once again, Bryce Young needs a safety valve at the tight end spot. If you look at Carolina's pedigree over the years with their offenses, they've had tight ends, safety valve tight ends. They've had Wesley Walls. They've had Greg Olsen. They've had Jeremy Shockey. Those guys that helped with the offense really well, added blockers, and then going out for those dig routes, those dot routes. The way that tight ends are built nowadays, they can do those short intermediate routes and actually stretch the field. So I like the pick. Very good.
All right. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go through my last pick here. My last pick for the Carolina Panthers goes to Jordan Jefferson, a defensive lineman out of LSU. In his final season at LSU, 13 tackles, 2.5 sacks with a forced fumble. a 6'3", 313-pound defensive lineman, ranked 11th best defensive tackle at the NFL Combine. He had 34 reps on the bench press, 31-inch vertical jump. I think for a late round pick to get the 11th best defensive tackle in the draft, I think you could do much worse. So we'll kind of go a little more. I wouldn't say more in detail, but we'll sort of dissect and compare and contrast mock drafts from the last 3 weeks now. Come next week as we approach quicker and quicker the 2024 NFL draft. We're up against it. You can find Michael Davis at @outofpocket_TRSR and at Drop the Mic Wrestling on Instagram. Mike, you got any final words for the folks listening and watching over on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel?
Yeah, stay tuned for next week. It's going to be Mock Crazy Wednesday. Really excited for it. And good job with your mock.
Wacky, wavy, inflatable, arm flailing tube man whack. You know what I'm trying to say. Mock Draft Wednesday. Shannon, you can find Shannon Smith over on X at @podcast_Smitty. Any final words for the folks? Shannon Smith.
Looking forward to next week's mock draft. We'll have a good time with it. 8 minutes on the clock, everybody. Make sure you're ready.
That's right. And then you can find me on Twitter or on X at Tapouts and TDs or Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns. As far as this show, if you haven't already done so, make sure you go follow and like the page on Facebook, Facebook.com/TheCatCaveFFSN, or on Instagram and X at TheCatCave_FFSN. And until then, you may now exit the Cat Cave, but make sure you listen to more content on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel and more Carolina Panthers themed podcasts on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. For Shannon Smith, for Michael Davis, I'm Ryan Frick, and we'll see you next week right here inside the Cat